63 through 73. I'll try to keep this centered so you can see it. So my first thing I always do is from 0 degrees to 5 degrees north to 5 degrees south. This is low pressure. This is the doldrums. This is the place where the sun makes the air rise because it's so warm. And that air that rises at the doldrums sinks at the horse latitudes, which is right here. High pressure is sinking air in this case. And somewhere up here around 55 degrees north. Oh, not high pressure, low pressure. There's low pressure. Low pressure. Winds blow from high pressure to low, and they curve clockwise in the northern hemisphere. So prevailing westerlies are like this, and then we have the northeast trades going from this high pressure to the low pressure and curving clockwise. Now we're down in the southern hemisphere. Winds are going to blow toward this low pressure, and they're going to go counterclockwise, symmetric to the winds in the northern hemisphere. And this is going to blow some water. This water in this area is going to go the same direction as the winds, and it's warm because it's close to the equator. Hits the continent here and moves up this coast until it's blown back out by those winds. This water is going to hit the coast, but actually in this case there's nothing preventing this warm water from moving all the way across. On the other side of the continent, this wind is blowing water out to sea. It's going to take this water and push it out, and that's going to suck in cold water from the north. Up here, the water is just going to follow these winds. Some of this is going to curl south. And there's going to be a gyre in the horse latitudes. Since the wind to the north is blown to the right, that's going to make this circulate clockwise. Same thing over here, clockwise. And looks like we've got a warm current going up that coast, cold current there, warm all the way across, cold all the way across. All the blue is coming from a relatively cold place between 30 degrees and 50 degrees latitude. All the red is either existing in or coming from, well, it's always coming from an area between the horse latitudes and the equator, so 20 degrees or closer to the equator. High pressure is dry and low pressure is wet, and generally the warmer side of the continent is more humid. There's more rising air over here. This is like a hot steamy bathroom, and this is like a cold water bathroom. This is going to be more humid. So the desert, which occurs in this high pressure, is bigger on the west coast, smaller on the east coast, and should not quite touch that hot steamy side. The rainforest is centered in the doldrums, and it should be smaller on the cold water side and bigger on the warm water side, but there's warm water all along here, so really rainforest is right there. Now I'm going to find the places where the wind is coming from the ocean hitting the continent. And here the wind is coming from the ocean hitting the continent all along here. This whole coastline is coastal wet. Right along here, coastal wet because the wind is coming from the ocean. Here, the wind is blowing out to sea. That doesn't make it wet. Here, it's blowing out to sea. That doesn't make it wet. But along here, the wind is coming from the ocean, blowing over the continent. I'm going to add in the rain shadow effect as winds cross these mountains. Here you've got to have wind and you've got to have mountains. There's no rain shadow here because there's no wind. No rain shadow there because there's no wind. The wind is going to rise on the right side of the mountains, making that wet. And it's going to sink on the west side of the mountains, making it dry. Up here, the wind is going the other way, so it's going to get to the mountains, it's going to rise up the west side, sink down the east side. So this is all going to be wet. And the back side here, I'll make it connect to the desert, is going to be dry. The area right in here, this is summer wet, winter dry. because when the sun, which is normally making all this wet here, shifts north, it pulls the wet with it, summer wet. When the sun, which is normally causing all this sinking air to sink here, shifts north, the desert shifts north, so this area becomes dry in the summer. And this happens more on the west coast of continents than the east coasts. So that's it. Now I've just got to answer the questions. The place that's in a high pressure belt, that would be F, G, H, and I. Low pressure belt, N, O, P. I can't tell. Where's Q? Can't even see my own dot. Has a westerly wind coming from the west. So right up in here, there's A, B, D, E, and C. The wind is coming from the west. It's in a major rainforest not caused by rain shadow or coastal breeze. That would be N, O, P. Not quite Q. Well, maybe Q. Q would be okay. Q is on the edge. N is also on the edge. I'd take it or not take it. Major desert not caused by the rain shadow effect. Definitely G, H, and I. Relatively warm ocean water, J and R. Wet due to breezes from the ocean, that would be anything here. There's nothing there. Probably Q, although I don't know where Q is. I just can't see it anymore. I've covered it up. If there were a letter along here, B for sure. That's it. Wet due to the rain shadow effect, M and D. Dry due to the rain shadow effect, E and L. Drier during the summer, wetter during the winter. Summer dry, winter wet. So that would be B. It'd really just be B, but I would take B, D, E, or C. B definitely. And then in parentheses I'll put D, E, or C. Anything between the horse latitudes and this low pressure up here is fair game. Drier during the winter and wetter during the summer. So K, L, and M, anything in there is fair game too. And then also, I still don't know where Q is, if Q is south of the rainforest. So the summer wet, winter dry is anywhere between 20 degrees and 5 degrees. I'll never take off points for anything that you answer within there. And summer dry, winter wet's anything between 30 and 55. That's always okay.